afternoon. I'm still drinking coffee. So I drank some wine last night and I regret that because I don't seem to deal with it very well anymore. I do sometimes. It depends where I go and what the wine is like. Which is confusing because last night it should have been good. It tasted alright, but because it just wasn't. Fucking horrendous. Also, I've spent a lot of today watching true crime stuff, documentaries and whatnot. Another thing that I should never do personally, because now I don't want to leave my house for any reason. So I've had to stop doing that because, you know, it's just something else I don't want to invite into my life. So I thought now would be the perfect time to film part 4 of yours truly, Jack the Ripper by Robert Bloch. I didn't get to film yesterday because I worked all day, and by the time I'd finished I just wanted to, you know, have a bit of fun with my husband, and so we went out and we did that. Fucking back to reality now though. Well, gonna enjoy the weekend. Oh, here we go. Hang on a second. Yeah, here we are. Yours truly, Jack the Ripper. Where were we up to? I can't remember. I think where last we left Carmody and Hollis, they were sitting in a seedy pub in the dives of Chicago, drinking gin. And it seemed to me as though Carmody was trying to get Hollis really drunk. I don't know, that's just the way it seemed to me. Yeah, here we go. And they're out looking for Jack the Ripper because apparently now is the time that he's going to strike again for some fucking reason with his, you know, blood sacrifices and rituals and shit. Alright, so anyway, I listened very patiently. After a while, I got up and took another I got up and took the bottle of gin off the bar. The bartender nodded, took the money I offered him, and went back to dozing. Well, I'm hungover. I poured Sir Guy another drink and another. But the liquor only made him more talkative. How he did run on about ritual killings and prolonging life unnaturally. The whole fantastic tale came out again. And of course, he maintained his unyielding conviction that the Ripper was abroad tonight. Let's hope so. I suppose I was guilty of goading him. Very well, I said, unable to keep the impatience from my voice. Let us say that your theory is correct, even though we must overlook every natural law and swallow a lot of superstition to give it any credence. But let us say, for the sake of argument, that you are right. Jack the Ripper was a man who discovered how to prolong his own life through making human sacrifices. He did travel around the world, as you believe. He is in Chicago now, and he is planning to kill. In other words, let us suppose that everything you claim is gospel truth. So what? Yeah, so what, Sir Guy? What do you mean, so what? Said Sir Guy, pouring himself another glass of gin. I mean, so what? I answered. If all this is true, it still doesn't prove that by sitting down in a dingy gin mill on the south side, Jack the Ripper is going to walk in here and let you kill him, or turn him over to the police. And come to think of it, I don't even know now just what you intend to do with him, or if you ever did find him. That is the question on everybody's lips. What the fuck? And obviously that's where the story's heading. Sir Guy gulped his gin. No. I'd capture the bloody swine, he said. Capture him and turn him over to the government, together with all the papers and documentary evidence I've collected against him over a period. Yeah, it's not going to make you look a bit fucking mental, is it? People are just going to believe him. I don't know about that. Over the years, I've spent a fortune investigating this affair. I tell you, a fortune! His capture will mean the solution of hundreds of unsolved crimes. Of that I am convinced. I tell you, a mad beast is loose on this world, an ageless, eternal beast, sacrificing to Hecate. I still haven't looked that up. If there's a part 5, I'll look it up, or, I'll just mention it in the next story that I read. If I remember, which I probably won't. So if anybody ever wants to remind me, tomorrow, next week, 10 years, let me know and I'll look it up. It would be so funny if that actually happens in like 5 or 10 years. Someone just wants me to look that up. Okay, to Hecate, the dark gods, in vino veritas. Or was all this babbling the result of too much gin? It didn't matter. Sir Guy Hollis had another. You're gonna regret that, Sir Guy. I sat there and wondered what to do with him. The man was rapidly working up to a climax of hysterical drunkenness. Each to their own. One other point, I said, more for the sake of conversation than in any hopes of obtaining information. You still don't explain how it is that you hope to just blunder into the Ripper. He'll be around, said Sir Guy. I'm psychic, I know. That's just the gin talking. Sir Guy wasn't psychic. He was maudlin. The whole business was beginning to infuriate me. We'd been sitting here an hour, and during all this time, I'd been forced to play nursemaid and audience to a babbling idiot. After all, he wasn't a regular patient of mine. That's enough, I said, putting out my hand as Sir Guy reached for the half-empty bottle again. You've had plenty. Now I've got a suggestion to make. Let's call a cab and get out of here. It's getting late, and it doesn't look as though your elusive friend is going to put in his appearance. Tomorrow, if I were you, I'd plan to turn all of those papers and documents over to the FBI. If you're so convinced of the truth of your wild theory, they are competent to make a very thorough investigation and find your man. No, said Sir Guy, drunkenly obstinate. No cab. But let's get out of here anyway, I said, glancing at my watch. It's past midnight. Fuck, I should be in bed. He sighed, shrugged, and rose unsteadily. As he started for the door, he tugged the gun free from his pocket. Here, give me that, I whispered. You can't walk around the street brandishing that thing. I took the gun and slipped it inside my coat. Then I got hold of his right arm and steered him out the door. The bartender didn't look up as we departed. Just probably just used to that. We stood shivering in the alleyway. The fog had increased. I couldn't see either end of the alley from where we stood. It was cold, damp, dark. Fog or no fog, a little wind was whispering secrets to the shadows at our backs. How ambient. The fresh air hit Sir Guy just as I had expected it would. Fog and gin fumes don't mingle very well. He lurched as I guided him slowly through the mist. Sir Guy, despite his incapacity, still stared apprehensively at the alley, as though he expected to see a figure approaching. Disgust got the better of me. Childish foolishness, I snorted. Jack the Ripper indeed. I call this carrying a hobby too far. Hobby? He faced me. Through the fog, I could see his distorted face. You call this a hobby? Well, what is it? What is it? I grumbled. Just why else are you so interested in tracking down this mythical killer? My arm held him, but his stare held me. In London, he whispered. In London, he whispered. In 1888, one of those nameless drabs the Ripper slew was my mother. It's got a lot darker. What? Later, I was recognized by my father and legitimized. We swore to give our lives to find the Ripper. My father was the first to search. He died in Hollywood in 1926 on the trail of the Ripper. They said he was stabbed by an unknown assailant in a brawl, but I know who that assailant was. So I've taken up his work, do you see, John? I've carried on, and I will carry on until I do find him and kill him with my own hands. He took my mother's life and the lives of hundreds to keep his own hellish being alive. Like a vampire, he battens on blood. Like a ghoul, he is nourished by death. Like a fiend, he stalks the world to kill. He is cunning, devilishly cunning, but I'll never rest until I find him. Never! I believed him then. He wouldn't give up. He wasn't just a drunken babbler anymore. He was as fanatical, as determined, as relentless as the Ripper himself. Tomorrow, he'd be sober. He'd continue the search. Perhaps he'd turn those papers over to the FBI. Sooner or later, with such persistence and with his own motive, he'd be successful. I'd always known he had a motive. Let's go, I said, steering him down the alley. Wait a minute, said Sir Guy. Give me back my gun. He lurched a little. I'd feel better with the gun on me. He pressed me into the dark shadows of a little recess. I tried to shrug him off, but he was insistent. Let me carry the gun now, John, he mumbled. All right, I said. I reached into my coat, brought my hand out. But that's not a gun, he protested. Oh, that's a knife. Oh, I know. I bore down on him swiftly. John, he screamed. Never mind, John. John, he screamed. Never mind the John, I whispered, raising the knife. Just call me Jack. I see. Fair enough. Well, that's a shame. Hollis never got to, yeah. Kind of sad, actually. Well, alright, so that's part 4 of yours truly, Jack the Ripper. I did enjoy reading that. Once again, the writing of Robert Bloch. I don't know, like, Robert Bloch is I guess he's very diverse in the stuff that he writes about. Sometimes it can be quite serious, while other times can be sort of ridiculous, upbeat, and just funny. This was a mixture of those, I felt like the content is obviously very dark. It's the subject matter is just, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that ending. Am I surprised? Maybe a little. I kind of had a feeling that would happen, but I was wondering, like, could there be some sort of surprise ending where Hollis turns out to be Jack the Ripper or something like that? I kind of knew it had to be one of them, though. And yeah, I mean, when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense that... But then, did he know that it would be Carmody that was Jack the Ripper? Like, is that why he visited him? I mean, we'll never know, because Hollis is dead, and it's just a story. Anyway, yeah, so if you've stayed till the end of this, thanks for watching. I did enjoy reading that. Looking forward to the next one, of course. I think for now, I'll just leave that, you know, maybe for about, I don't know. Actually, I have no idea. I never really stick to what I say I will do. It always winds up being something else. I am, however, about to start work on another crochet project, so that's really exciting. Like I said, I'm going to hold off on watching any more true crime crazy person documentaries for the for the rest of today, at least. Because that was getting a little uncomfortable. And that mixed with my, my hangover, which admittedly, it's improving as the day goes by. I'm starting to feel a little bit better. The coffee has really helped today. Yeah. I think I'm gonna, start getting into watching the Halloween movies now because, it's the fucking 19th. And I still haven't really even started. I still want to watch The Howling 2. My sister is a werewolf. Still want to watch that. Okay, enough babbling. Enough hungover babbling. I hope you enjoyed this story, and I hope you join me for the next one, whatever that is. I'll probably do a poll, but I don't know, I might. We'll see what happens. Alright, thanks for joining me. See you next time.